Hey there, it's Laura Dominic. Thanks for joining me on a Plan for Joy podcast. Each week we'll be talking about things that will help you break the cycle of depletion. You know, the one that has you going from doing all the things to feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, resentment, anger, to sucking it up and starting all over again. And instead, learn to break the cycle and contribute from a place of abundance. Are you ready? Good. Let's go. Hello and welcome. This week, I'm going to start by telling you a story. I'm an organized person, and so I like my hair to be organized as well. Every hair in its place. I always part my hair on the same side. I'm kind of particular about the way it looks. But in the past 25 years, I've had a total of 2 stylists, right? I haven't switched out. You'll understand why in a few minutes. And at the beginning of our relationship, I would explain to them, how I liked my hair done. And occasionally I might try something new. That the cuts were never a problem, but inevitably they would start to style my hair however they wanted to. I'm not even quite sure why, because I would be kind of specific, but at the end, maybe they were trying to tell me something. Maybe they were trying to spice up my life. I'm not sure really what the reason was behind it, but it was very consistent forever. And then we'd hit that moment at the end of the haircut where they'd ask, so what do you think? They hand you the mirror and turn you around so you can see. So what do you think? And I'd be like, yeah, I like it. Thanks. And I'd get up and pay and then go home. Now, one of two things would happen. It kind of depends on what the day was like. Sometimes I'd go in the house and my kids would laugh. That's how bad it was. And so if it was a good day for me, if my mindset was doing pretty good, I would laugh with them. Okay. But then I'd go and I'd wash my hair and style it the way I like to. If it was a bad day, if my mindset was in the wrong place, then those kids knew not to laugh. There would be no laughing, and my mind would be going into a tailspin. Oh, why do I have to go through this? Why do I look so bad? Why don't they like me? All that goofy stuff. And I'd go home and I'd wash my hair and I'd style it the way I wanted to. But the funny thing is, 5 weeks later, I'd go back and do the exact same thing all over again. So why is that? Why did I perpetuate this forever? Well, I'm here to tell you, hi, my name's Laura. I am or was a chronic people pleaser. And as I've learned recently, a chronic liar. That one hit me pretty hard when I made the connection there. So let's dive into this a little bit deeper here. What is a people pleaser? A people pleaser is a person who feels a strong urge to please others, even at their own expense. That's the key. They feel a lot of times that their wants don't matter, that it's more important what the other person wants. I know in my case, it was, I just didn't want somebody to not like me, which is why I kept going back to the same hairstylist forever, because I was afraid to let her know that I didn't like what she was doing. I didn't want her to get upset. I didn't want her to be mad, whatever. And sometimes people pleasers will even change their personality depending on who they're around, just to make sure that they're making these other people happy. Okay. A people pleaser has a hard time saying no, plain and simple. In fact, it's easier to say yes and to deal with the consequences and make up an excuse later to get out of whatever you said yes to than it is to tell the person no. And I totally agree with that. But on the positive side, let's look. A people pleaser is a deeply compassionate person who really does care about the feelings of other people, but it's to the detriment of themselves. And that's where the problem is. Because if we're going to make people happy, and to a certain extent, we're all people pleasers. It's hard to say. We want to please people. It's just generally in our nature to do that, but it can't be consistently to the detriment of ourselves. And that's where we need to amend our ways and make sure that we're pleasing people for the right reasons, because we want to, out of a place of abundance and not depletion. And so that's where the cycle of depletion comes in. I've talked about this before. The cycle of depletion is you're overwhelmed. And in my case, that overwhelm was totally fueled by my inability to say no and to lie to people, to tell them what they wanted to hear. So it just kept getting more and more overwhelming. And then I would get frustrated, and not necessarily at the people or myself that I should get frustrated with. And then the resentment would set in, and then I'd get angry in general, just at whoever was around me, not necessarily even about that situation. And I'd blow up and start all over again. And so, like I said, for me, that was probably the biggest thing that kept me going through the cycle of depletion for so many years. Because I'd say yes to things that I shouldn't have said yes to. Oh, sure, I can do that. Or, yeah, this is a great time. Sure, feel free to ask me anytime, even if I didn't mean it. And then I would say no to things that I shouldn't have said no to, like, is there anything wrong? Oh, no, I'm fine. Do you need any help? No, I can do it. What's up with you? You just haven't been yourself. Oh, no, nothing. Don't know what's wrong. I can't tell you how many times I lied to people in answer to those questions. But then, and here's the kicker, right? I would be frustrated, resentful, and angry about it. So all that people pleasing might have made the other person feel good, but I was the one in turmoil, which would then affect everybody else around me, right? I'd yell and complain to my kids, take it out on them. I'd be passive aggressive to my husband, even though he probably didn't have a whole lot to do with it, right? This is like a classic example of seemingly innocent people pleasing. It would be close to, and this, I remember I have 7 kids, and while they're all grown up now, they weren't at one time. So it would be getting close to time for me to start dinner, and the phone would ring, and I'd answer it. And because I would see who it was a friend of mine, and she would say, "Is this a good time?" Okay. And I'd think to myself, 7 kids in the late afternoon. It's almost time to start dinner. My husband will be home soon. Sure. This is a good time. I can talk, which would be a lie. And then we'd talk and talk and talk and talk, because it probably wouldn't be a very short conversation. And then at one point she might even say, "Just let me know if you need to go." And I'd say, "Oh, no, it's fine. It's not a problem." Another lie, right? Meanwhile, the kids are getting crabby or doing things they shouldn't be doing, and dinner was barely getting started, and my husband would be home wanting to ask me a question or talk about something. And I'd be like, yeah, just a minute. And I couldn't end the conversation. Why? Why couldn't I just be honest and say, "Hey, you know what? I got to go now." Couldn't do it. Like, I physically could not do it, because it was easier for me to deal with the turmoil inside of me and the chaos around me than it was to tell her the truth that I needed to go and risk cutting her off or getting her upset. Would she have really been upset? I doubt it, right? She would understand. She was a mother, and this is, multiple friends, not necessarily one. I would have a horrible time cutting people off on the phone because I needed to go. So I would just perpetuate the lie and say, "Sure, we could keep talking, no problem." Like I said, also had a very strong aversion to people not liking me or being upset with me. And so that was a lot of why I had a hard time with people pleasing. And looking back now, I can, because I've gone through the work and I've made the changes, I can see how ridiculous it sounds for me to even say this. But at the time, I couldn't change it. And I'm thinking that there's probably some of you out there who totally understand what I'm getting at. So here's why I needed to and why you need to stop being a people pleaser. And the first point, the biggest point, is because you're lying. And I never made that connection. I'm not saying, you're in mortal sin or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. But you are lying. You're lying to yourself. You're lying to the people you're trying to please. You're lying to God when you're not telling them the truth about whether or not you want to do something or you can do something, or if there's something wrong. Anytime you try to make them happy, but it's not the truth, you are lying. And anything built on a lie, as we know, is not built on a good foundation. So you don't want to keep doing that. You need to have, like Jesus said, your yes mean yes and your no mean no. And it was really hard. In fact, it was really hard for me to have that sink in. And when I was writing this up, it really kind of hit me again. So I was very grateful that yesterday I had the opportunity to go to confession, because it really was weighing heavy on me. All the lies I've told without really thinking about the damage that it possibly could have been doing. So something to definitely consider there if you've never made that connection. Second reason why you need to stop: it keeps you in the cycle of depletion. And we all know that that's not a fun place to be. Telling people yes when you mean no will keep you overwhelmed. And it'll increase your frustration and your resentment, and also ultimately will make you angry at everybody around you as well as yourself. You might be able to suck it up and deal with it for a while, but in the end, it will definitely take its toll. Third reason: your self-esteem is taking a hit, and you won't be able to be the woman God created you to be, because you have this conflict inside of you all the time. Well, like, I know I should say yes to this person or that person or my kids or my husband or whoever it is, because that's what a good Christian woman would do, right? We've talked about that before too. But I don't want to. And so I must be a bad person, because I know I need to say yes to them, but I don't want to say yes. And so I say yes anyhow, and then I'm upset that I said yes, and I'm upset that I have to do this. Anyhow, this conflict will continue to go on in you, and you'll feel like, why can't I just be a good Christian woman and be happy about doing all this stuff? That's not the problem. There's more to it than that. And then you'll need to really dig deep and figure out what is behind your people pleasing, and then work on that. And sometimes it's some pretty heavy stuff. Okay. If you're a chronic people pleaser, there's a reason why you're that way. It came from somewhere. And so you should dig in there and see what it is. If you can figure it out, you might need therapy. Therapy is a good thing. And you can really work on what might be the root cause of your people pleasing. So don't ignore that step. And then the fourth reason I found this definitely to be true: if you're a chronic people pleaser, you won't be able to make an independent decision. I'm getting better. I was a horrible decision maker. And sometimes those decisions are big decisions that you have to make. And you're not going to be able to do that because you're going to be too worried about what everybody else is going to think. I mean, the classic one I think that a lot of people make jokes about is, and was definitely something that happened all the time here, is my husband would say, "Where do you want to go eat?" I don't know, because I was afraid. And I might have known, oh, I would love a taco. But I would be checking with everybody else to make sure that would make them happy. So I would say, oh, I don't know. Where do you want to go? We can go wherever. I don't care, even if I had a strong opinion about it. So small decisions, big decisions, you're going to have a hard time with them if you're worried about what everybody else is thinking, or you're worried about making everybody else happy. Again, let's differentiate between you truly not caring and wanting to make other people happy, and it makes you happy in that moment to make them happy. That's the ideal. Not you saying, oh no, whatever you decide is fine with me, and then sitting there seething through the whole dinner because you really didn't want to eat gyros instead of tacos. Okay, just want to make sure that that's clear. So what's the answer if you want to stop your people-pleasing ways? One word: boundaries. You need to learn what they are, how to develop them, how to communicate them, and how to hold people accountable to them. You have to understand that it's okay to tell people how you really feel. And it's okay to not want to do something. You have to come to terms with that. And I'm going to talk about this a lot more when we talk about boundaries. But you're not responsible for how other people feel. Okay? So you need to draw your boundaries so that when you say yes, you really mean yes. And when you say no, you mean no, and that's okay. But then I've also realized that there's another layer to this besides boundaries, in that you really need to work on your worth. You need to feel worthy of having boundaries. Because if you don't think you're worthy of telling people how you really feel, nicely, of course, then you're not going to be able to stop the people pleasing. And so worth is another thing that you need to work on. You need to embrace the fact that God loves you because you are you. And there's no other reason why he loves you other than you are you, not who you are or what you do or what you have or what your kids do or anything like that. So those are the two things that I think really need to be worked on in order to put an end to people pleasing. And it's going to be uncomfortable in the beginning when the first time you say how you really feel about something, and you like hold your breath waiting for that person to do whatever you always thought they were going to do, which probably won't happen. But it needs to be done because you need to be able to tell people the truth. Okay. So again, don't discount therapy either. If this is there's some heavy reasons behind why you're like this, dig deep in therapy, unpack it all. So we are going to, I kind of just threw those last two things out there, boundaries and worth, because they're pretty big topics and they deserve a lot of time on their own. And so I'm going to be breaking a lot of this down into further episodes. And because it's not just boundaries, it's boundaries with different types of people, and it looks different. And you have boundaries with yourself, and if you have to deal with how God looks at boundaries and things like that. So we're going to be talking about this for a while. So hopefully, if you have a problem with people pleasing, you will keep tuning in and learn something new about all about boundaries and your worth. So something you can do in the meantime is an action step that you can take is to reflect on whether or not you are a people pleaser. I'm going to assume that since you're still here, you probably are, and that you have nodded your head in agreement to a lot of what I've said. So have you ever made the connection between people pleasing and do you consider yourself a liar? Like I did. I just, that was something I never connected, and I should have. So I want you just to take some time to like really reflect on that and become aware. Awareness is the key to changing anything. And so start digging into, well, first of all, start noticing when you're people pleasing. See how it affects you. See how you feel about it. Why did you respond the way you did? Why didn't you just say how you really felt? What kind of feelings were there? That kind of stuff. And then see if it's, throwing you into that cycle of depletion. Is it overwhelming you? Is it making you frustrated? That kind of thing. So just be aware of what you're doing right now and how it's making you feel. And then in the next episode, we'll start digging into boundaries. So until then, I hope you'll like this episode, and please share this with all your people-pleasing friends. Maybe you're not a people pleaser, but you know someone who is and who really needs to hear this for their own sake. And so I hope you'll share that with people, subscribe to my channel, listen, leave a review on Apple iTunes or Spotify. That would be fabulous. And I will see you again next week. God bless.